let us see some fetching strategies. We already know these fetching strategies, but let me quickly revise all those. Session.load will give you a proxy always. Yes. And whenever I say load the proxy, I got this proxy. Proxy will be always having the ID. So if I say item.getID, it will fire a query. No. It will fire a query whenever I try to get other than ID. Right? Hibernate is internally using proxies, and these proxies can initialize themselves on demand. So better, whenever possible, use the proxies to improve the performance. Right? Next, where is actually proxy required? This is a very good example which tells about when will the proxy be actually very good. See this? I am saying session.load item and session.load user. I will be getting a proxy, right? Now why I loaded user and item is I want to set a relationship. One bit has one item and one bit has one bit. There is association, many to one association, right? Or one to one association, some association. Now I have fetched this item and user just to set a relationship with a new bit, right? Now in this case, what is required? Only primary key will be sufficient. If I want to set a relationship, only primary key will be sufficient. I did not load the whole item object and user object, right? So whenever you want to set a relationship, whenever you want an object for setting a relationship, you can always better use load instead of using get, right? Proxies will be useful. Next, in one object there can be lot of associations, many to one association, one to many, one to one, lot of associations, right? Now I'll just show you an example first. We are already having many relationships configured. I'll use bidirectional one to many here. Okay, now if you see, one user is having many accounts and one account belongs to one user, right? Now just tell me, if I say session.get bank account with some primary key, session.get I am saying, get means it will fire a query, right? It will fire a query on bank account there. Bank account is having a reference to user. Will this user be automatically loaded or not? It's a many to one relationship. One bank account has one user. Whenever I load bank account, will this user object also be populated automatically? No. By default, all the associations are loaded lazily. Whenever I fire a query to get bank account, user object will be a proxy, not only collections. Here in this case, user will be pointing to a proxy, right? So if I fire a query to get a bank account, the associations will not be loaded. By default, all the associations, whether it is many to many, one to one, one to many, anything, all the associations are loaded lazily. Now let us see how it happens. I will show you how to solve this problem. Now here I will say session dot get bank account dot class whose ID is 7. I'll be getting a bank account object. Now this will fire a query on select query on bank account based on primary key, is it? Let us see whether it will fire a query automatically on user. It fired a select query only on bank account, but it didn't fire a query on user. So user will be a proxy. So now if I want to solve the problem, what I can do is here in minute 1 I can say lazy is equals to false. Lazy is equals to false means eagerly loaded. It should be eagerly loaded. Now once I fetch bank account, it should also fetch user also. See, is it loaded? What did it? Lazy is equals to 2 or lazy is equals to? Lazy is equals to false. I think those bank accounts are not having user. Let me just save this again in case. Okay, I think now the data is updated. Did I use create here in the hibernate.cfg.xml? Oh, tables are okay. Now data is inserted. Now I'll fire a query for bank account whose ID is bank account ID is 2001, is it? The ID is 2001. Now I'll run it. Okay, commanders. See, it fired a query on bank account. One bank account is having 2 users actually. No. It fired a query on bank account and also user table, and also it fired a query on bank account for a different user ID. It has to get bank accounts with no users also, right? I think this is the one which is getting all the bank accounts with no user. It's firing. But if I remove this, lazy is equals to false, I remove. Now let us see. It fired only on bank account, right? So by default you need to understand that all the associations are loaded lazily, and you have to enable eager loading if you want, right? See this diagram now. Collections are also loaded lazily by default. One item is having one successful bid. So item is having a reference to a bid. Is it a proxy now? Yes, proxy only. All of this is a proxy. It's having a reference to set. This is also proxy. This is also proxy. This is also proxy. This is also proxy. Proxies will just contain IDs. Only the IDs, right? That also will contain many proxies, right? Now what you can do is on set you can make it lazy is equals to true. Sorry, lazy is equals to false if you want set to be loaded eagerly. Or what is the meaning of set? Lazy is equals to extra, we discussed already. See, whenever I get a proxy, if I say dot, if I get a item dot get bits, I'll get a set, right? If I say set dot size, if I want to fire query set dot size, I want only the length of this collection. By default, I'll get a proxy, and if I say dot size, it will go and fire the select query and retrieve everything. Then it will give me the size of the set. But if I just want the size of that set, why to retrieve all the data? It can fire a query like select count of star from that collection, right? If I write lazy is equals to extra, it will be extra lazy. And if you fire some queries, if you call some methods like size on a collection or contains or is empty, it will not retrieve the whole set, whole collection, right? So it will be extra lazy. So for lazy there are three options. Lazy is equals to true, false, extra. Okay. Here in our application, what I did was I want this association to be eagerly fetched. So I said lazy is equals to false. Only this association will be eagerly fetched. But if another entity is also having a reference to user, another entity also is having an association to same user, will the user be fetched eagerly there also? No. But if you want eager fetching of user always, right? Two entities are having relationship to user. If you fetch lazy is equal to false on that relationship, only this relationship will be fetched eagerly, not all. If you want everything to be fetched eagerly, what you can do is you can set lazy is equals to false on class only. So wherever there is a relationship with user will be always eagerly fetched. Okay? This is what I was saying. And here I was showing about how to set the lazy is equals to false on a relationship, right? I already showed. Next. Okay. Now, just to see this program before going to that. One user is having many bank accounts, right? One user is having a list of bank accounts. Now, I will fire the query to get the user first. I will fire a query whose user ID is 2. In the database I have 2 as a user ID. User is having a list of bank accounts, right? Will that be loaded automatically? No. Okay. Next, if I say it will load only user, is it? But why it selected accounts also? Did I configure? Oh, lazy is equals to false, I said. So if I remove this, user only will be loaded. Query will fed on user, right? Now if I try to access all his accounts, I'll say like this. Will this fire a query? Just tell me. Will this fire a query? No. No. will it fire a query? If I am trying to print it, I am trying to access the collection, it will be firing a query on account table, right? But how many queries will be fired? I just want to see. This is a query for getting all the users, and this is one query for getting the bank account for that particular user. So 2 queries are fired, right? Now tell me the scenario. I will fire a query. Here I am getting only one user. I will do like this. One more scenario. Session dot create query from user. How many users will it return? List of users. I'll say dot list. I'll take it in a list of now I'll iterate over this loop for user u colon users. I'll say system dot out dot println u dot get. Now how many queries will be fired? Let's assume that in my database I have 2 users. 5 users I have. In my database I have 5 users. This query will be fired. One query will be fired for this. And then it will retrieve all the 5 users. I am iterating in the loop. Let's assume that I am in first time in the loop. I am calling u dot get accounts. Means will it fire a query on bank account table? Why? No. When it got the list of users, bank accounts were loaded eagerly. Sorry, were loaded lazily. Set will be loaded lazily. User is having set of bank accounts. Right. In this list of users, users are not having bank account, they are having proxies. Now I am iterating to each user and calling get accounts. I am trying to access that proxy. Then the proxy will be initialized, right? So this will go through the loop for 5 times if there are 5 users. So 5 extra queries are fired to get 5 account details, 5 sets, right? So in this case, totally I can say n plus 1 selects are fired. Means total users in the database are 5, suppose n. In this case, how many queries are fired? 1 query for user and 1 query for each time in the loop. 6 queries are fired, right? Now I want to reduce the number of queries which are being fired. Let us see the strategy to reduce the number of selects. What I can do is I can say batch size is 10. Means whenever it tries to fetch 1, it will try to fetch 10. Now see here, same thing I will do it here and I will show you how batch size will work. For accounts, I will specify batch size is equals to say 10, whatever it is. Okay. In this case, let me run it. Actually, if I have more than one user, it will be good. Just quickly save some. Just save this and then fire the queries again after saving. Yeah, it should have inserted now. Now I'll comment it. Again I am firing the same thing. Now let us see the query. How many queries are fired? One for select and one, two queries are fired separately because it's in loop. Two users are there, two queries have been fired. Here also n plus 1, right? This will be Backsize. If I specify as 2, check. It's firing individual queries. Here, if you are using batch size, the number of queries will be reduced because it will fire the select query and fetch. Whenever you try to initialize the first proxy, it will try to fetch 10 proxies. It will try to fetch 10 proxies at a time by using such a query, right? So it will reduce the number of queries being fired if I used batch size. This is one of the fetching strategies. And for collections also I can specify the batch size. Okay. Now prefetching with subselect. If you see fetch is equal to subselect I have configured. For set I have specified fetch is equal to subselect. Means whenever I try to initialize the bit, it will use a subquery and get all the bits. Hibernate now initialize all the bits of the collections for all loaded item objects as soon as it for the initialization of 1 bit collection. It does by rerunning the first initial query slightly modified. So if you use fetch is equals to subselect, it will use a subquery whenever it has to fire one item has many bits, right? If you say I.get bits, you will get a proxy. If you try to initialize a proxy, it will get all the bits by using a subquery like this. Okay. Now let me show you how this fetch is equals to subselect works. For set I will configure here, for list here anyway, fetch is equals to subselect, means it should fire a subquery and then fetch all the data. Now I'll run it. See, if you see here, whenever it is fetching the collection, it is using a subquery inside. It is not joining the two tables. Earlier, if I don't use it, it will join the two tables. Now it is using a fetch query and then get all the corresponding users, bits for all the corresponding users. So if you use fetch is equal to subselect, it will increase the performance. Then fetch is equal to join. If you use fetch is equal to join, it will internally use joins. See here, whenever I fetch item, in this case, item is having many-to-one relationship with seller. By default, when I get item, seller, is it loaded by default? All associations are loaded lazily. But if I use fetch is equal to join, it will load eagerly now. But this item table will be joined with seller table. Let us see how it is. It will use inner joins. I will show without join and with join. Okay, I will remove this one. Fetch is equal to subselect here. Now, in bank account, I will say here for minute one, if I fetch bank account, will it by default fetch user also? No, all associations are proxies. So now I will fetch bank account now and see how it will happen. I will comment this. I have to get the bank account first. This will get the bank account with ID 2001. By default, when I got the bank account, will the bank account is having a reference to user. This will not be initialized, right? Let us see whether a query will be fired on user table or not. I am asking only for bank account. It fired only on bank account. So user is still a proxy, right? But if I say system.out.println bank account dot get user, one bank account is having a user, then this will be initialized, then the proxy will be initialized. Now let us see how many queries will be fired right now. One query for bank account and one query for user. Two queries are fired, right? Now let us see. I will configure now. I will comment this again. I am getting only the bank account. Then here in the bank account I am saying fetch is equals to join. I am running it again. See now, I fetched only bank account, but it automatically joined bank account with user table and fetched user details also, right? So whenever I am using fetch is equal to join, it is eagerly fetching the association. But now in this case it is not using two queries, it is using a single join query, right? So performance can be increased sometimes by using fetch is equals to join. This is also one of the fetching strategy, right? What is the difference between lazy is equals to false and fetch is equals to join? Tell me. Fetch is equals to join. Will it enable eager fetching? Yeah. I fired only for bank ID, bank account. I said session not get bank account. That's it. It automatically joined bank account with user. It made a join. So when I say fetch is equals to join, it is eagerly fetching. But if I say lazy is equals to false, this also will fetch eagerly. But now when I say lazy is equals to false, it will fire two separate queries. One query for bank account and one query for user. Two separate queries if I say lazy is equals to false. But if I say fetch is equals to join, it will join those two tables in a single query. It will also fetch eagerly, right? Then eager fetching the collections. Now tell me, if I say fetch is equals to join, by default all the collections are loaded lazily by default. But if I say fetch is equals to join, collections are fetched eagerly by using join. It will join the two tables, item table with bit table, right?
When it does a join, it's not actually it's not
Eager
eager fetching.
fetching, just if I say session not get item, it will get, it's getting all the bits also, the bit of set of bits also is getting populated.
Right, but since it's a join, can it actually call eagerly fetching?
See, I asked only for item. Why did it load all the set of bits?
Okay.
It's eager loading only. Next, tell me first one thing. Outer joins, are they good or bad? Bad in performance. And okay, outer join between two tables is good. If outer join is between 3, 4, 5, 6 tables, then it is too bad. See here I have a scenario. One item is having a successful bit association. One item is having one bit, and one bit is having a bidder, and that user is having a shipping address. The relationships are linked, right? If I enable eager fetching all of them by using outer join, then number of if I use fetch is equal to join for these associations, then it will be using outer join. So number of outer joins are now 4. Queries will be bad at performance, right? So generally the number of tables joined in this case depends on the global Hibernate.max fetch depth. You can configure it and tell how much should be the fetch depth. You can configure anything between 1 to 5. 1 to 5 is also mostly acceptable, but if it is more than that, performance will be suffering, right? You can disable join fetching for many to 1 and 1 to 1 by setting the value of this property to 0. It will never use outer joins for the associations many to 1 and 1 to 1. Even though you configure fetch is equals to join, even though you configure fetch is equals to join, and if you set the property value of 0, it will have different individual queries, right? It will not join, it will not use outer joins. Now last thing here, we have yesterday seen about inheritance, yesterday only, right? Day before yesterday talked about inheritance. We saw about table per subclass. In table per subclass, where we are discussing about an example with disk, audio disk, video disk. In table per subclass strategy, how many tables will be there? 3. And are these 3 tables having foreign key relationships? Yes. In this strategy only foreign key relationships are there. This is the strategy where all the tables are normalized form, right? Okay, let me open that. Table per subclass. How I made it here? See, I used joined subclass and specified a foreign key column for each table. There is a table for each class and a foreign key column, right? Now, in this scenario, we already saw if I fire a polymorphic query, it will be very heavy. It will use outer joins to join 3 tables in this case. There are 3 tables. If I fire a polymorphic query from disk, it has to get details of disk, audio disk, video disk. It will perform outer join of these 3 tables, which is not very good, right? Let us try to optimize that first. Okay, I think I retrieved it. Select demo. Now I am firing a polymorphic query. Query is already there. I am running it. I am firing a polymorphic query. See the query which is generated. It is using from disk table, outer join audio disk, outer join video disk. Okay, joining 3 tables with using outer join is now in this case okay. But if one superclass has some lot of subclass like 5 or 6, then it has to join 5 or 6 tables by using outer join, which is not good. So do you feel that this strategy is bad? This strategy is the best strategy because it is a normalized form, but queries are poor. So we need some way of improving the configuration, the way we configure. We can improve the performance of the query by using this configuration. See? Okay, first see this configuration. If I have to use this strategy, this is the configuration. how I am giving class disk is equals, for disk I gave a separate table, for joined case I use a joined subclass tag, audio disk, and I give a separate table. Here I am specifying the foreign key. Another class, separate table, foreign key, right? Now whenever I am using joined subclass, I am giving a separate table and a foreign key, right? Do you remember table per class hierarchy strategy? Table per class hierarchy, for the whole hierarchy a single table. In this table per class hierarchy strategy, how do I distinguish between whether this row belongs to audio disk or video disk? Discriminator column, right? So now we can use a combination of these two strategies if you want the tables to be still in normalized form and the queries have to be better, right? Let us see how to combine these two strategies. Now I'll just open the XML file for table per class hierarchy. Just see it once. See this once. I'm using a tag called subclass. This is table per class hierarchy. This is a discriminator column, and I'm using subclass. Am I specifying a separate table name? No, because all the classes will go to single table, right? So whenever I'm using subclass tag, I need to give a discriminator value for this class, and table is not required, is it? Whatever I write properties here will go inside this table, inside the above table, right? Now I'll show you the configuration here. Okay, this is a different example. Billing details is a superclass where I have given the billing details table name. These are the superclass properties, and I gave a discriminator column. The value is billing details tag. Here I am using subclass tag. Tell me, if I am using subclass tag, what is the strategy name? Table per class hierarchy, subclass, and I am giving the discriminator value, the value for credit card, right? If I am writing inside this subclass, if I am writing a property tag, whatever property I configure here, the column will go inside the above table. But I am not writing the property tag right now. I am using a join tag. When using join tag, I am specifying the table name credit card. So a separate table will be created now. Whatever I configure here will go inside credit card. What tag is used to specify key tag? Key tag is used for specifying foreign key column. This is a foreign key inside this table, which will be referring to the primary key of the account, right? So now also I have separate class, separate table for credit class. Sorry, each class is credit card class, right? Similarly for bank account also, I give a separate join tag, right? So now tell me, in the superclass, in the table for the superclass billing details here, how many fields will be there? ID 1, discriminator column 2, right? And in this credit card, this will be the foreign key and all properties of it. I didn't specify. And for bank account, this will be the foreign key and all properties of it, right? So now also I have 3 tables. But what is the advantage I get?
It's normalized and
It is normalized, and we are having details of all the cards, whether this row belongs to credit card or audio disc, whether a particular row inside this billing details, is it a credit card or bank account, can be automatically set by looking inside billing details table. That's one advantage, and there are normal, these tables are in normalized form. Now here you can see fetch is equals to select and fetch is equals to join, right? If I use fetch is equals to join for bank account, I am giving fetch is equal to join. Means whenever I fire a polymorphic query, this table will be joined with this table. But for fetching credit card details, I said fetch is equals to select. A separate query will be fired for firing credit card, but these two tables will be joined. Let us see the query. See, billing details and bank account are using joins, but separate queries are fired for credit cards. So we can reduce the fetch depth, the number of outer joins, if you are using this strategy for configuring.
But it is more suitable for select, or this is also work suitably when you want to commit and perform updates or any other kind of update.
Whenever you say save, if you are saving, in this case credit card, one row has to be inside this one and one row inside this table. There is no difference. In previous strategy also we are having two tables, one row inside this, one row inside this. There is not much difference while inserting, but while querying,
No, but it has to again do an update for the update. This will be no point. No point in
okay. That's about it. And here I talked about n plus 1 query. Here we already discussed. And one more thing here. We already saw fetch is equals to subselect. By default, collections will be lazily loaded, right? If I say fetch is equals to subselect, whenever I try to get one proxy, all the other proxies will be automatically loaded by using a subquery, right? So the number of queries is reduced to 2. Earlier it was n plus 1. Now if I am using fetch is equal to subselect, the number of queries are reduced to 2, right? And if I say fetch is equal to join, it will join the two tables, right? It is just like eager fetching, right? Instead of fetching, instead of specifying, one great strategy is don't hard code the fetching strategies inside the XML. What you can do is whenever you are writing SQL queries, right? You can write join here, right? When you are firing SQL queries, when you are saying whether to eagerly fetch by joining or not. So whenever you want to use fetch is equals join, better to tell that, better to write it inside a particular query instead of writing it inside the XML. If I write in XML, it will be applicable for everyone. But if you write in a query, this is applicable only for that particular query. So instead of configuring join, fetch is equals join in XML, you can always write it inside a query, right? These are the various fetching strategies, and you know that Hibernate initialize, it will explicitly initialize the. These are the various fetching strategies.